To be a great and a successful coach, you have to have a heightened sense of self-awareness and everything that we spoke about. And I think this training equipped me at least, a great deal. And somebody asked a question in the chat, how is this training different from other training? I haven't been a part of other training, so I don't know. But I would imagine, they'll spend a lot of time on the markers and everything you have to do before and after the session and so on. All that is good. All that is extremely important. But I can't imagine being a successful coach and being able to hold the kind of space a coach is expected to without really knowing yourself, or actually maybe leaving yourself out of the coaching session. That's what we were told. You have to leave yourself out of the coaching session.
Good. So let's get started, folks. I'm feeling really happy that we are doing this for Coacharya. For me, definitely, it's the first time being part of a Coacharya webinar. Have been attending these for almost 3 years now, and quite a journey it's been with Coacharya. A lot of it is something that we are going to talk about today. So everyone, today we are going to talk about ontology. And when you listen to us, when you ask us questions, please bear in mind that we are students of ontology. So treat us with kindness in that sense. We are not masters. We are practicing it. We are interpreting it to the best of our ability. And that is what we are going to talk about. I hope it is useful to you just the way it was useful to all of us. And one interesting fact is that all of us who are here, we just raised our hand to be part of this webinar, like within a few hours of being asked by Coacharya. And that says something about what ontology has meant for us, or is meaningful to us in our lives, because it changes the way we work or look at things, or the overall perspective, not just towards coaching, but also our work. And those are the kind of topics that we are going to touch upon today. So first and foremost, it's quite a heavy word. It was quite a heavy word when I heard it for the first time. And while you can go to Wikipedia and see, okay, ontology means your way of being, etc., it is still a bit difficult to wrap your head around what is this ontology, and especially what is this ontological coaching? What is this way of being? Right? So can we just open up a little about how we, all of us here, interpret ontology or ontological coaching in your words? If any of you would like to, share just the definition or the understanding of the concept for you.
I could go. I don't know if I'm going to give a direct answer, but I'll tell you what ontology has meant for me. So I will start with my very first class with Drivan, and he introduced the word ontology. I hadn't even heard the word before that. But I think I'm only now, after, I think it's been 2.5 years since we had that class, I'm trying to come to depth with or make sense of that word. Every day one thinks about it. And this is almost like a favorite example of mine where, people ask me about a certain behavior in my coaching classes, and there is a certain problem they're dealing with. And the thing that I try and understand, of course, is what is that person's state of being? What are you really? And, I think about it as the well from which every thought, every action emanates. And I think ontology for me represents that well. And that well is different for, each one of us. From that well emanates what we say. From that well emanates how we think. From that well emanates, how we behave with one another. I think ontology to me is a study of that well.
Nicely put, Jay.
Yeah.
You said a lot about what it does to you, ontology, but we are coaches here. We are here to do something to the client. So how does all this studying of yourself, your way of being, is helping us as a coach? Maybe Milind, as you are the freshest among us in getting this input, or anyone really. If you would like to chip in as to this whole work on yourself, how is this doing anything to you as a coach or to your clients?
So again, I think it's a very difficult word, and we've spoken about it. It is one of those words, in spite of however much time you might spend on Google, it is really very difficult to get your head around. I would say it's a bit like an emotion. It has to be sensed and it has to be felt rather than it to be understood. And if I can, if I'm kind of making sense. Why is it important for a coach? And of course, then it is very important for a client. Because I think once a coach has a good understanding of himself, because he at the end of the day is that conduit through which things are going to flow. Now, if he has that understanding, a good understanding of self, it is that understanding which will propel him into making his client understand himself much better. If he doesn't have that awareness, I think it would be very difficult to evoke that kind of awareness or understanding for his client. So, what you don't have, very difficult to evoke or invoke in somebody else. I think that's how I would put it.
Right. So ontology has led to greater self-awareness. But if I'm a coder, I don't need to be highly self-aware. I just need to know how to code. So why is it important for a coach then to have such a high degree of self-awareness, which ontology brings? Anyone has any?
Yeah, I can just attempt. So I mean, we are all, as human beings in this world, and like our clients are all looking for a better quality of our existence, right? And that is the reason that we are partnering with them. The whole purpose is to get to some better quality of our existence. And if we think of where that comes from, of course, a lot of people have. I mean, there are a lot of things that are told to us in terms of how we should behave, we should communicate. But there is always a deeper layer, which is resting in the way of being for the client. That's how I see ontology. Like, it's the way of being. It's a study of being. Like, so we always focus on the doing, how we should talk and what words we should use and how we should behave. And, all these things are always taught to us and we intellectually know them. But what is it to be? And what is it, that deeper layer of being that needs to be accessed in order to have any lasting impact? And as coaches, if we are able to help the client reach that deeper layer of themselves, from there the best version of themselves will emerge. So it's their experiences. So how, I mean, as coaches, we are partnering with them to be able to reach and delve into that layer of way of being, is how I see it.
So if I can paraphrase that, you are saying that there is a behavioral layer, and underneath that is the being layer. And through ontology, you are acting directly at the being level so that the behavior and other things that emanate from it can be addressed.
And more integrity of thoughts, words, actions, which leads to better quality of existence, or whatever they are getting. Yeah.
Right. I hope it is beginning to become more and more tangible for our audience. But Ranjit and Soma, if you also want to pitch in, happy to hear from you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ranjit.
After you, Soma.
Thank you. So I think what it allows me to do as a coach is just access the right channel, or just be the right catalyst that I need to be in that particular conversation for my client or for the person sitting across me. I could be many things as a person, right? But ontology allows that access, or gives me that access to, in that moment, dance, okay? Create that dance and see what is it, what kind of catalyst do I need to be for the person sitting across me, for them to achieve what they came to me for. So I know it has many levels, but I think that's as briefly as I can put it, what it does to both the coach and the person sitting across the coach who's come to the coach for something.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and if I can sort of expand, well summarized by all the fellow panelists, it's really, as a role of a coach, is to evoke that awareness and partner with that client to go deeper. And what's often at the surface level, there's a lot happening underneath. And it's helping them access those very sources. It's almost like a hidden camera, right? As Jan put it, it's the well, right? It's almost like a hidden camera. It's how we are showing up. In many ways, ontology is how we're showing up. What are those inner sources of, our intention, our mindset, our energy, our what sort of context are we operating from? So it's really, in many ways, operationalizing the self-awareness. Otherwise, what is self-awareness? So as a coach, I think it's incredibly useful to really focus on the person, focus on the client, seeing their whole self and going deeper. That's how it really helps one in a coaching practice. And I would just sort of, expand on that to say that. Yeah.
Right. So I think we are all coming to that very cohesive explanation that we're addressing the very being of a person, the full self, the whole self. Great. Thanks for that. I think the conversation has warmed up, and over these 10 minutes, a lot more people have joined us. So this might also be a good time to do the introductory credits, just like, sometimes in movies, there is an opening scene and then the credits start. So we have talked about what ontology means to us, and now let's do a brief intro. So who are we? Why are we here? So one thing for all of you to note is that we have gone through an ontological training to become certified and or credentialed coaches. And Jayant, to the top left of my screen, is joining us from Gurgaon. He has had a long corporate career, and now he is a techpreneur. He is into AI. Soma is in consulting. She is into HR, and she is using ontological training to deliver better results in her company. Ranjit, right here, had a long career. I believe the last one was in banking. And it's been a few years that he has established himself solidly as a professional coach. He's joining us from NCR. Preeti here is working with a large PSU. She is an HR leader, and she has been using ontological coaching training to lead a large team. And we will hear more about all these soon. Milind has had almost 3 decades of corporate career. And when he chose to move into coaching, ontological training is what he opted for. So, and Milind is in Pune, Preeti is in Mumbai. And about me, I left my corporate career of about 21, 22 years, 3 years ago. And I was told that the coach training does something to you. So it's not just another kind of a training. So I thought that if the coach training is going to influence me, then what should that influence be? I went to Coacharya website and a few other coaching websites. And the description that I saw under ontological training, I thought, okay, I think this is how I want to change. And I opted for that and never looked back. It's been 3 years, and I've just been doing a lot of coaching, facilitation, and consulting. And especially today, I found myself saying, who are you being in this situation a lot of the times? We'll come to that if the conversation takes us there. So yeah, this is who we are, coming to you. So yes, since this is primarily about coaching, I want to first talk about ontology in coaching. So Ranjit, I wonder if you would like to talk to us about how it is showing results in your coaching practice with you and your clients. We have understood the basics.
Yeah.
But what does ontological coaching do to your clients?
So I think, as I mentioned there, it's really helping the client self-discover and go deeper. What is at the very source of whatever they're either wanting more of, more peace, more calm, more impact, or wanting more or less of, less stress, or wherever they're feeling challenged. And I think it's really going deeper to understand beyond the surface, beyond the superficial, what they are attributing or what they are feeling are the reasons contributing to that state. And a lot of times we over leverage our doing parts, right? What are we doing? What are things we're ticking off? But a lot of times it's really going to it's like the to be list, so to say, right? So with intention am I looking at this situation or challenge or goal? From what sources of authenticity am I facing after that? With which mindset am I approaching this? And there are many ontological concepts and many constraints that we are imposing on ourselves. So in many ways, it's really going to those pieces, which is the evoking awareness competency. If many of our participants are coming in, undergoing their training, it's into that evoking the awareness bit and going deeper to understand what's fundamentally coming in the coach's way. And that's really what we get into, with which prism, for example, are they looking at any situation, and what is at the source of that? What fears are being sort of not being heard, or what are they being explored? So it's a lot related to this, and almost asking them what is their to be list, what is it wanting them to be in this situation. And what we tend to do is always over leverage our doing and under leverage our being. And a lot of these pieces are actually our jet fuel. How am I being open? How am I being non-judgmental? How am I being intentional? How am I being trustful? So it's a lot. It really helps in a lot of the leadership development work that I do. It really helps me going deeper, getting to the crux of what exploring these dimensions helps one get closer to, and actually help the clients really self-discover what's really coming in their way, rather than the traditional so-called more obvious, what seems above the surface, if that helps.
So how does this approach help the leaders? So you have generated self-awareness, great, but how is it helping them deliver better results? By understanding their prism, their intentions, etc. Can you help us understand that?
Yeah, so in many ways, that really comes to where are they being stuck, right? What is really causing the blockage in many ways? What is really causing, and how are they seeing, with which prism are they seeing it, and reframing those, or actually frees them up to make an impact on whatever they're looking at. So in many ways, one is the discovery and insight as to what they're unpacking. And then once they have that discovery and insight, what changes do they need to make? And often those changes in the leadership realm are less on the doing and more on the being. Am I listening? With what sources am I listening? Right? Am I listening to the inner commentary in my head, or am I just being open in this meeting? Right? And so how am I being trustful? What kind of safety am I promoting in my teams? Right? So a lot of actually stuff is coming up in this to be element rather than just the doing elements. And that's what amplifies their leadership impact. And that's what helps them actually. And that's really the jet fuel. And as I said earlier, it's like the hidden camera, right? This is not being measured, or it's not showing up on a P&L, not showing up on a balance sheet. But that is the very inner source of how things are happening, right? So,
right.
My 2 pennies worth.
Right. So this is how it is showing up for you as a coach. Now let's see if we are applying it internally, because we hear about this concept of manager as a coach a lot these days. And Preeti, I believe you are leading a team in your organization. So how has this been transformational for you as a manager? Would you like to share?
Yeah, sure. Saurabh, thanks for that question. So I really agree with everything that Ranjit was saying, and I could resonate so much with everything that he was saying. And I can talk about my experience. And I have been working, and so I feel that organizations. I mean, the culture that we live in, organizations are having goals, and we have deadlines, and there's so much there's so much fast-paced doing that we really forget to be. And there is, because being requires a different kind of a mindset, a perspective. As leaders, we are used to delegating and passing on the instructions. I'm just talking in a very simplistic way, but that's how, because there is no time and there are deadlines, and it's easier to just kind of pass on orders and pass on instructions. And that we are just not in touch with either the people that we lead or with our own selves. And very practically speaking, very ground level talk I'm doing. So when we think about ontology and how it impacted me as a leader, I started slowing down a bit, because I started shifting my perspective from just doing, doing the mandates and the goals and the deadlines, to figuring out what is it that is happening with my team, how like each of my subordinates, each of the team members that I had, what was going on with them, how was it to be them, and how do they receive what was going on, and that made me much more empathetic, that made me listen more, that made me open, that made me curious, and that made me wonder, about myself, how I should be as a leader in order to be more effective. And also, that changed me and my behavior towards them. And that in turn, automatically, I didn't have to do anything. It kind of, at the moment I started changing, the people started changing. And as there was more connect, there was more bonding, there was more rapport, work became easier. It became more effective. I didn't have to, lead with the carrot or the stick, because there was a connection. And so it's almost like magic, Saurabh. It's like, coming from that kind of, you change your internals and you see the world around changing, and
Right.
and it's like magic. So those are the things which, I'm talking from experience, from my own personal experience. A lot of time we operate through a lot of anxiety as leaders. We have pressures, we have stresses, and that in turn, makes us poor leaders actually. But the moment we kind of slow down and first work on ourselves, automatically it has a transformational experience for the team, and then it becomes more effective.
Wow. It does go against a lot of conventional habits that we see around ourselves. I think slowing down is something that I'm taking away from what you said as the turning point for whatever changes you saw in your team. And we also have Soma here, who is applying or interpreting ontology in her corporate career in a different way. Soma, why don't you tell us about your experience?
Sure, Saurabh. I think I can make a clear call out to a couple of shifts in my approach I've been able to make post, the ontology journey. So one, I think whenever we are in a corporate setting, we are driven by outcomes, right? We're all responsible for achieving something, and we need to sort of hold true to that, right? Because that is what is determining our success on the role and whether we are serving the organization well, the one that we're working for. So I think so it's helped me change my lens from just an outcome to a more of a partnership lens, to say that, hey, it's not just me who wants to achieve something, it's even the other person is equally in this for something that they want to achieve for themselves or for their team or for their client, right? So changing that lens has changed the quality of conversations I have with people, be it with people in the business or my own teams or others in HR, and it helps us achieve a common why and talk about, okay, how can we now look at solving for this? So it's a lot of more collaborative conversations, more quality partnerships, because the other person also knows that I'm there for them too, right? It's not just something that I'm trying to walk away with, but we're looking at outcomes that both of us can achieve together for the greater benefit for the two of us, right? So that's one. And second thing is moving away from transactions versus building relations, right? Because you may not be able to, you might fail once, it's okay. But if you invest in actually being interested in what the other person wants or what they are trying to achieve for their client, they'll know that for the second conversation, when you come around for the second conversation, they know that you got their back, or you're their trusted advisor, and they listen to you. So so looking at anything that is to be achieved more like a journey and partnership, vis-a-vis like a transaction that needs to be got onto a call, solutions discussed, challenge discussed, and okay, what can we do? But beyond that, being more interested in the other person's growth, what they stand for, what is it that they want to achieve, understanding what they're here for. So I think these two have phenomenally sort of changed my approach, and also the quality of conversations I have with them and the openness others in the organization have towards what we're trying to achieve together. So it's a win-win for everybody, because everybody gets something out of it, and they know it's a partnership. It's not a transaction.
So once again, we are hitting the same theme, that by moving away from transaction and focusing on relations, we are delivering better results in the organization. Similar lines to what Preeti said. And yet here we have one of our panelists who left this world and he started his own company, Jayant. And the timing of this transition almost coincided with our coach training, because we were in that training together. So do you think this training has anything to do with the way you transitioned or are transitioning? What is your perspective?
I mean, I can answer that question. I'm not sure the training had anything to do with the timing, but the training has everything to do with how I'm dealing with the transition.
Right.
And I think I find myself calm and at ease, as I'm going through the transition. And therefore, I'd like to, maybe expand on what Soma and Preeti and Ranjit said. While it was said in the context of where you work, I think the another way to think about your state of being is that your state of being is one. And how you show up in the personal space versus the professional space versus the social space is not going to change with the spaces. You are going to remain the same person. What I'm saying is, if you're having a certain challenge at work, chances are you're having a similar challenge at home. Chances are you're having a similar challenge in a social setting. So to think of the benefit of ontology in just your place of work, I think is being a little myopic. And I want all of us to take a slightly broader view here. And that's what ontology did for me when I say it's just helped me become a better person. And once I become a better person, I become a better father, I become a better son, I become a better manager, I become a better peer. So in that sense, the impact of this training has been profound, in my life. And I'm sure anyone, who takes this half seriously, they'll feel, the same impact. So coming back to you, Saurabh, I don't know, maybe subconsciously this training gave me the strength to say enough is enough. I don't want to do this and I want to do that. And then it's just keeping me grounded. I'm less anxious. I'm a lot more self-aware. That's the other thing I say. I think the biggest disease in this world is the lack of self-awareness. And I think we just started on that journey, and ontology has played a great role in just helping me become more self-aware and thus therefore manage myself much better. And I think that's the number one quality, and I'm bringing it back to the coach, is that how do you manage yourself in that conversation? And therefore, how do you hold that space, for the client? I can't say enough about the impact of this training that it's had on me as a person. Forget as a professional, as a coach, all of that is secondary, tertiary, but I think it's just had a profound impact on me as a person.
Right. Thanks, Jayant. And we will come back to the impact of this training on our personal lives in a minute. But let's also hear from Milind, who is also on a similar career journey. And Milind, how is all this training, all this information influencing your transition?
So before we move into the transition, I'll just build on what Jayant says that, this what is study of the being? Just understanding your DNA in very simple terms. So if you understand what's your DNA, you can improve once you know who you are, and you can be true to that. What ontology does is the fact it makes you a better person. I think it makes you a better leader, and it makes you question everything that you believed is what leadership is all about. For example, in corporate parlance, what is leadership all about? It is about being a subject matter expert. It is about taking judgments. It is about, giving directions. It is about solutioning. But when you go through this ontological experience, if I might use the term, you realize that this is not what it is. You might have felt that you were a leader in the corporate world, but you were essentially a manager or at best a director. You were never a leader. There was no, there, you never emphasized on trust. You never emphasized on collaboration. You never emphasized on authenticity. You never emphasized on intellectual integrity. Now, suddenly, these are things that you start building on, as who you are as a leader. And what it does is it just changes something within you. And like I think Preeti was mentioning, it also changes the response that you're going to get it from the other end. I think that's one very big change that happens. Second is leadership is all about making judgments. I don't think there was a single let's say an hour that went by where I have not taken a judgment in my 28 years, because I thought I was getting paid to take those judgments and therefore take those calls. Now, when you suddenly realize that you can actually suspend judgment, and it's such a powerful thing to suspend judgment, and it can be done. And I think ontology helps you do that piece. And the moment you start suspending judgment, you start seeing a very different world. You start seeing a very different world. You come across this concept of what is, I think, was mentioned as the reality which is going to emerge, which is a default reality versus created reality, the created future. And those are things that you can again emphasize as a leader, which I think these pathways, if I might say so, they all opened up to me. Maybe I was aware of them, but there was a better and a sharper articulation of that because of this ontological experience.
Right. So what does suspending judgment look like in real life? And what's the connection with the ontological training? If you want to give us an example.
So what happens, first let's start from, why do we make judgments? We make judgments because we believe that we live in a very homogeneous world. Okay, so my world and your world is exactly the same. So I understand where you're coming from, and therefore I have, because of my expertise or the knowledge, I'm able to, take a judgment and say, you're right, you're wrong, or this is what you need to do, or this is what you need not do. The moment you suspend judgment, the spotlight is on the other person. And then you're making that person aware, oh, what is the problem? A better articulation of that problem. What are the possible options that he can come up with? What is holding him back? And therefore come up with a solution which is very customized and his own solution, and therefore a very high degree of acceptability, rather than just trying to paradrop something, into his world, because the worlds are very, very different. That's how I would look at it.
Interesting. Thank you, everyone. And I just I'm tempted to go back to what was mentioned earlier by Jayant about the impact of ontology on us personally. And at least three of us that I know about are parents. Milind, Soma, and Ranjit, I'm not aware. But does anyone want to talk about the role of this training or this influence on you as a parent? I know the effect it has had on my child. She has started saying that, Dad, please don't use the coach voice on me a lot of the times. So that keeps happening. But other than that, it has definitely helped me become more even-tempered and more accepting of whatever she wants to do, because I'm also looking at her from a being level rather than a doing level. But I'm very happy to hear how it is affecting us or influencing us as parents.
Do tell us more, Saurabh. That's very interesting.
So there is this temptation that my child should be doing so many things, should be attending these many classes. And how is she doing at school? Does she have a career plan already or not? Doesn't matter she's in grade 6 or grade 7. Does she have a career path ahead of us? Which is all coming from doing. Which, if you go to the root of it, is not very different from how we are looking at leadership and team management, etc., topics that we touched upon. But if you start looking at your child as another human who is going through life experiences and will make sense of her life the way as she grows, just as I am doing it, then maybe I should call it suspending judgment. That there was a certain ease that came in. And the moment that happened, I started seeing that there are many types of intelligences, and she's showing one particular type of intelligence. So she's not showing intelligence in some academics areas, but she's showing hyper-intelligence in some other areas. And it helps me see her differently in that sense. It helps me give her the space because I can see how people change over time, and there is no age group or age limit where the change happens. So we don't know if she is going through the change now. Will she decide her career path today at age 12, 13, or will she do it at age 30? So let go. I think that change of perspective has helped me.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Saurabh, and I resonate. And I'm just recalling an incident, like, I mean, this incident almost becomes a metaphor for many things deeper, like what you're saying right now. And I just thought I'll just share that as a parent. Like, so as parents, as Milind was also saying, we have this thought, that we have more experience and we have more knowledge about how it is to be living in this world, and from there, like, and from our own need to be to have the well-being of the child in our mind, that need kind of propels us to kind of give a lot of instructions and a lot of deliverables, or those kind of things. So I remember when my daughter was younger, she was climbing on the jungle gym, and she had reached the top. And then I was like a little, again, that fear and anxiety of how she would actually come down, and her well-being, and her, like, that she shouldn't fall. And as a mother, like, you say, what, put your step there, now put your step there, and give those instructions, okay, do this. And she was ignoring me, kind of. And I was getting more and more angry and annoyed that she would fall, and all that, yeah, care for her was coming out in that, manifesting in that sense. But then I did this entire thing of ontology, and what is she trying to do here, and what is she being here? And she was being experimental. She wanted to try it out on her own. And then how do I be in that situation, at what would she want me to be? And when that thought crossed my mind, I was like, I relaxed, slowed down. And then like, I kind of had faith that she was kind of putting her steps very carefully, when I slowed down and observed her. So there's a distinction between judgment and like, just kind of being evaluating, that, okay, she is putting her steps. And then you kind of I just kind of asked her things like, do you have a plan of how you're going to come down? And being open to what she had to say, and curious about whether she had anything in mind, where would she put her step, where would she kind of make sure that her safety is there. And she said, yes, I have, I'll put my, and she kind of started responding. And it's I realized that this is kind of a metaphor of life, right? I mean, this is what we want our children to know how to go forward, take decisions on their own, learn, experiment. And that's the real way of being, for me as a mother. So it's these are little things. I mean, this was just one incident, but like, slowly, incident by incident, we grow and we keep changing as better versions of ourselves. So that's that's the beauty of ontology.
Beautiful. Any other experiences?
Oh, I can go on and on this one. But I think fundamentally, I think what ontology teaches you is that there are more than one way to lead one's life, and yours is not the only good way. So it taught me, and again, as I said, it certainly improved my relationship with my son. And quite like Preeti, one has a template in which you want to bring up your children, and you think that's the template, it's the safest, surest way of bringing up a child. But I had to throw that out of the window very, very quickly. Otherwise, harmed my relationship for life with my son. And to that sense, I think that the timing of this training that I went through couldn't have been better. So you're just less prescriptive now, and you learn to listen and maybe not even react. And with that understanding, again, as I said, it also then helps you be a much better coach, because you're not in a conversation looking to judge. Oh, this is right, this is wrong, don't do it this way, do it that way. You're there to listen and ask questions which make you think about how you are processing your world. And I think that's what makes the best coach.
Right.
The space that you're holding, right? So just that realization that there are other ways to lead a full life, and yours is not the only way. I think if you can just take that away from L1, L2, L3, whatever, I think you're in a good place.
Thank you.
But-
That sums up so much. Milind, I think your hand was raised for a moment. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, first I wanted to say that I've got two daughters, 25 and 21. And
Okay.
very well guess it's quite tough dealing with somebody in that kind of a age group.
Hmm.
This ontological experience, I think, made me, and we spoke about the self-awareness, and I thought I had transitioned from being a cool dad to a caring dad because they had grown up. And I realized that I was not being a caring dad, but I was actually being a controlling dad. And in a way, that's where the conversations earlier, both my daughters don't stay with me. One is studying, one is working. But what were earlier, let's say 30-minute conversations in a day kind of trickled down to a minute conversations because they would, and always they would end up in some kind of a skirmish, verbal skirmish, because there is some instruction, there is some direction, and then there is a certain resistance. This course helped me realize that my kids have grown up and become adults, but I have just not grown up as a father or as a dad. And that helped me transition, and now I think I would like to believe my kids feel that, I'm a better listener. I don't give instructions. I don't unnecessarily poke my nose into their affairs unless asked for advice. So the role that I now play is that of a wingman. I am just present. I'm like the fly on the wall who's always present, but that's it. That's essentially what I do. And that has ensured that there's deterioration from a cool dad to, let's say, a caring or a controlling dad has again moved back to the cool dad status. So that would be a big payoff for me. But again, like we've discussed in the past, it's all about self-awareness. It's all about ability to suspend judgments. There are different ways to live, different worlds, and the fact that we need to respect. I think all this comes from these ontological conversations.
Wow, incredible. Any more experiences?
Saurabh, I'm taking mental notes here because I have a 3.5-year-old.
Okay.
So I'm just looking at all the people I can count on for advice from here on. And here I am struggling to just get him to eat veggies for now. Yeah. But I think, what I can share is, I think what ontology helped me realize is I need to give him a better why. Because he asks me, okay, that he already is asking me that why. If he's leaving the veggies on his plate, he needs reason enough to have it. And earlier I would tell him, you'll have an ear pain or, all the negatives, right? And then I asked myself, do I want to instill fear in him? Or what do I really want to do? What am I doing? And how long is this reason going to sustain for him to continue to do this, right? So then I came across a video, okay, by another mother. And then I told him, okay, I took a biscuit and broke it and told him something called as biscuit bones. And I said that if you eat veggies, they help you, build better bones. You'll be stronger. You'll grow taller. So all of that he understands. And I said, otherwise, if you fall and if you have biscuit bones like this, you will get hurt easily. And if you continue to have everything on your plate, you will become stronger. So I think now he gets it. And the other thing is that to be patient and persistence. That's another thing I learned. And every child is different, right? So I think this ontology thing also helped me that I can't just copy paste advice I get from other parents. I need to understand what he really wants, what he would really, resonate with, and give him that. So that's how it's helped me. So, yeah, but thanks, guys. You all helped me in some way today.
Thanks.
If I can just expand on that.
Of course.
I see many parallels, coming through, because who you are as a person is who you are as a coach. The two aren't mutually exclusive. So, if you are like I too have a 7-year-old, I find my son as my greatest teacher in many ways. It's that if you're trying to helicopter, if you're trying to sort of control and seeing things in a certain way, guess what? Even in your workplace, you're trying to micromanage and lead, right? And is that pulling the creativity of your team, or is that pulling the creativity of your child as well? And you just being open, being curious. In fact, the highest form of leadership I see are mothers at home. They know each one of their childs, how to connect with them, how they are different, how they sort of, and being able to sort of have that connection. So I think there are many parallels here, and it again boils down to even the coaches that we are coaching. It's really accessing the who of the client, right? It's like a little leaf that then goes to a branch, that then goes to the trunk, that then goes to the roots, and actually seeing that whole person and what's really emerging in a coaching context, in a personal context. And I think if you can't go to your own depths, it's very difficult to hold space for your clients. If you can't go through, because at the end of the day, we may be coaches, but a large part of it is also a human journey at our core. And being able to go through the depths and the realms of our own self-awareness. And I think that's really what the program really takes you through. Otherwise, you're not templated coaches showing up, talking all fancy jargon and lingos. It's going through the depth and actually having that lived experience and to working with your clients.
Yeah,
I mean, being good at the ICF markers is not going to make you a great coach. To be a great and a successful coach, you have to have a heightened sense of self-awareness and everything that we spoke about. And I think this training equipped me, at least, a great deal. And somebody asked a question in the chat, how is this training different from other training? I haven't been a part of other training, so I don't know. But I would imagine, they'll spend a lot of time on the markers and everything you have to do before and after the session and so on. All that is good. All that is extremely important. But I can't imagine being a successful coach and being able to hold the kind of space a coach is expected to without really knowing yourself, or actually maybe leaving yourself out of the coaching session. That's what we were told. You have to leave yourself out of the coaching session.
Yeah. I want to add, going from where Jayant was, talking about the program, so I was just remembering, and the course itself is pretty intensive, and a lot of work on self-awareness and everything that we've spoken about, trying to understand and be aware of ourselves, and then to leave ourselves out of the space in which we are holding the client, and letting the client fill up that space, and just being as much as we can with the client, partnering with that person for in the journey that he's on. A lot of it comes from how the course is structured, and I would like to give all due regards to Drivan for taking us through that. The kind of the mentor Drivan.
So speaking of the course, I believe Coacharya is coming up with another batch course on ontology.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So yeah, members of the audience, if this has piqued your interest, then yeah, please do contact the Coacharya team. A new batch is starting very soon, is what I was told. So we have Yamini on the chat, and we may have a few, Smita is on the chat. So you can contact any one of them for knowing about that. Yes, Milind.
Yeah, so the marketer in me would, like to add a marketing pitch to ontology. And I would say it's like a prerequisite to the being of a coach. And that's how important. So you can understand the doing of the coach through, I'm sure there are multiple options which are there. But if you really want to get into the being of the coach, I think this would be one of the best frameworks or routes available to reach there. So that's my pitch.
Well taken. Doing versus being. And also,
I would also want to add a word. I think the person who conducts it, though he doesn't call himself as Commander Drivan, is an ex-naval aviator. Not too many Top Guns in India, Top Gun pilots, and he's an equivalent of a Top Gun pilot. Is possibly one of the most, I would say, committed teacher that I have come across, and it's been some time that I have left being a student, and after a very long period of time, it really felt very special to have a teacher like this, because it made you feel like a student. So thanks to Drivan also for that.
Yes, definitely thanks to Drivan. And is there anything on the chat that we need to be aware of? I was not looking at the chat. So Yamini from Coacharya or anyone has any question to ask? We still have a few minutes. But I do see that she has posted a link in the chat. So please do have a look at that. Okay, I don't think there is any question. Maybe we are such good people at explaining the concept. We haven't left any question unanswered. So how about we do one last round of sharing any last words or last thoughts that we have on this topic for today. And then we bring this to a close. How about that? Anything, any topic that you, around this theme of ontology that you have not spoken about, but you still feel needs expression?
So yeah, I mean, the question about how this course was is different from the traditional coaching, like how is the ontological approach a little different from traditional coaching. So yeah, so same here. I have not attended the other kinds of coaching, but like having read a little bit about them, like so this is more holistic, I would say. Like I mean, in the sense like, for example, other things focuses on a particular route to helping the client in whatever outcomes they wishes to achieve. And it may use some like, for example, emotions or something, some route to reach the deeper part of the client and achieve the outcome that they want to achieve. But this is the ontological approach is like the study of being, right? So being includes everything. It includes the head and the heart together. It includes the being and the doing. It's not like the doing is totally out of it. It is definitely part of it, but it focuses on the being and the doing that emerges from that being. So it's like more holistic. It's more it focuses on the person as a whole, and what the client, I mean, which whatever he comes up with as an outcome, how it kind of would serve him to be as a whole person. So that's what the focus is on. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up.
Great.
The one other thing I'd like to add here is, I don't know if it's just coincidence or if it's me talking from someplace which is not making sense, but I think ontology maybe draws a certain kind of person towards it. But I think one of the great, I would say, side effects or added benefits of doing this was just the fabulous people I attended the training with. And I think there was so much to learn from the 7 or 8 participants, that, and I think Preeti and Saurabh, we spent considerable amount of time together. I think that on its own is just fabulously enriching, just to be able to learn from each other's experiences, because each one of us operates from a different place. And then to understand, what everyone's worldview is. And you could actually see that change over the course of those 20 weeks. You could actually see real change coming about in people over a 20-week period. And I think that to me is absolutely profound again.
Likewise. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to share an anecdote which possibly kind of conveys the impact that this course had on me. So there's this book, you might have heard of it. Most of you might have read it. The name of the book is Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And in one of our sessions with Drevan, this book came up, and then it was recommended that one should read it. I had read this, or rather somebody had gifted this book to me maybe a few years back. And typically I read a lot, but I just couldn't complete that book. Few pages, and I felt that it was just not meant for me. The book was not talking to me. And after this, and I think this was the second or the third last session before we signed up for the course. And I again picked up that book and managed to finish it off in a week's time. And for a book which didn't make sense to me a few years back, it was almost as if I was reading Latin or something else. It just felt that this was a book actually which has been, so if some of you might have read that book, it's in a question and answer format where there's a student and there's a teacher and there's a conversation which is happening. I almost felt as if I was a student and I was asking these questions to the teacher who was Eckhart Tolle, and Eckhart Tolle was sharing his wisdom with me. The point that I'm trying to make is I think I never reached that depths before. I'd never reached that level of being before. And it was possibly because that's the only change even that has happened. And, that's the causal effect, like I would like to attribute. The fact that I have been through this course, this heightened sense of self-awareness and being in sync with your being allowed me to interpret a book which possibly appeared as Latin a few years back. So that's an anecdote I thought I would share.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more thoughts before we close? Well, the one thought that I have is that this has been quite an unpredictable and unscripted conversation. When we started, I did not know where it will go. Obviously, we think that, okay, we'll ask this or we'll say this, but the way it flowed was great. At least for me, the experience of being with all of you for this 1 hour has been fantastic. And now my being is hungry. And it's we are almost at the end of our hour. So how about we say our goodbyes and say thanks to Coacharya for offering us this opportunity to share our experience. And thanks to all the audience members who have been participating and are active on chat. Thank you, everyone. And goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great being here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.